Our next guest will weigh in on the deal environment, the Fed, and more. Joining us now, Moelis and Company Vice Chairman Eric Cantor. He, of course, a former congressman of Virginia, served as House Majority Leader. You're like a Renaissance man. I could ask you anything. I know that from D.C. to the halls of Wall Street. Let's start with deals. Andrew loves talking about deals, whether they're happening or not. In the Gilded Age, George Russell, and it's like Julian Fellows, it's like Downton Abbey, New York style. He wanted to build a railroad that went from coast to coast and could handle all the ships. It's happening right now. Will it go through? Is it a sign that things are loosening up in terms of regulatory, in terms of what CEOs think about deals?
You know, Joe, I think what we see at Moelis is so much more active dialogue now.
Active dialogue.
Because, listen.
Talk is cheap.
You think about this, though. You think about where we were April 2nd, Liberation Day.
Right.
I mean, strategics really took a step back. And not only strategic, portfolio companies as sponsors, too, because tariffs meant impact on their operations. So after we experienced that 4 or 5 week sort of lull, we have seen an increase every week in optimism about this deal market. And I think a lot of it does have to do with the absence of Lina Khan and the whole regime in Washington that just took the view that we're going to just end deals. Like, we think bigger is bad, so we're not going to have any. And I think you don't have that now. And you certainly have seen now that the Trump administration, the FTC, DOJ have been much more willing to go and just engage in discussions to mitigate negative impact on competition and let deals go through.
But it also, as Andrew's point, Andrew, is that jibe with what you're hearing from all your friends in that business? Is it finally loosening up? And it's not just regulatory.
All of a sudden, you hear that everybody is working.
You do.
24/7.
Because it wasn't just regulatory, it was uncertainty from
the tariffs.
From policy.
Well, they're right. And then over time, we got a little bit more certainty. Now with the trade deals, you know, there's a little bit more certainty as to what that's going to look like. But let's not discount, though, that the sort of signals coming from Washington.
Right. And if you're willing to pony up a little with PSAs or bribes, you probably can get a deal done.
No,
I'm doing that for you.
In a foreign country.
No,
that's not allowed, by the way.
No,
you're saying here too. Well, that's not allowed as well.
The one you asked about Paramount yesterday.
Oh, yes. You can.
I just think
you didn't follow what I was saying when I was tossing you a bone the size of a Flintstone.
You know, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act is over, but it's also a domestic Corrupt Practices Act as well.
It does appear that personal relationships or playing ball, if you will, with the... Now, I'm not saying this is the first time in history that that's the way it's been done.
Right. I was just going to say, you just got to figure out what it is that, you know, the regulators want, what the administration wants.
But is it a bad thing, to Andrew's point?
Well, listen, I mean, is human nature bad? I mean, I
yes.
don't know.
Well, no, but here's a question, and I ask it completely seriously. So clearly this last administration was against deals, right? So, and they had a very clear political view about deal-making writ large, Lina Khan, all of that, right? So we saw a deal stop because of a political perspective.
Definitionally, yes.
Right, but that was a philosophical view that could be applied to everybody, right? And we can agree whether that was good or bad. I didn't see them necessarily letting deals through because they knew that the folks who either ran the companies were friends with the president or were a particular former Democrat or a particular benefactor or things like that. And so the question is whether this time is a little different.
Let's not think there wasn't favor given to, if it wasn't
well, that's my question. Was there?
Interest
no, that's what I'm asking.
Of interest groups and lobbies and other organizations that were on the receiving end of largesse on the back of these deals.
Well, but that's the question, and that's what I'm so curious about. When you think about, so for example, unions were a huge beneficiary of, and were big backers spending money. So I see that. I don't want to dismiss that. I'm not dismissing that at all. My question to you is, do you see what's happening today as the same thing?
He's asking, is the swamp alive and well?
Listen, the swamp is alive and well, for sure. I mean, look, no one is immune to politics. I mean, I think that's the takeaway. Like, you'd like to think that these supposedly independent regulatory bodies like the FTC, now the DOJ is a little bit less, but...
the Fed is immune from...
Well, I don't even think the Fed is immune.
That's what I mean. I was going to change the subject and get to that, because that's our next step.
And again, I asked this actually maybe out of ignorance. Are there good examples? Are there good examples in history where the president of the United States has made similar demands of companies to actually make specific payouts
100%
to them and to the administration?
So look at what's going on with the CFPB and a lot of the regulatory direction under Obama carried on into the Biden administration with payouts of groups that were on the ground that would benefit from payments by banks to do XYZ, whatever their mission was. So, again, those were political sort of players in the background that were on the receiving end.
But, speak more to that, because I think, by the way, if that's the case, we should be talking about it.
Right. No, but I'm saying this goes on all the time.
But in what context? Give me, like, an example.
So, on the regular, like, there's the CRA, and there's people that benefit from where banks had to go if they wanted to merge. There were all these sort of consumer rights groups and NGOs and nonprofits that would benefit. I mean,
I even think the USAID, we saw a lot, where a lot of that money ended up. It was not where it was supposed to go at all. Maybe it did a lot of...
Well, and that was also part of Congress's not doing its job in terms of being definitive as to how that money should be spent and leaving it up to...
And the question that I'm asking, I guess, is...
Quid pro quo.
Just, if CBS or any of these guys who are going to give, or law offices or others that now have to give this administration particular pro bono services and other things like that, should we think of that as the equivalent?
But was there a problem that exists in the first... Harvard's going to pony up how much now, almost conceding, we needed to change. Right. Columbia, twice what Columbia spent. Yeah. Not just picking on Harvard, but because of and I'd say the same thing about CBS. They had to reckon with what they had become.
Right, and this
but I think had they gone to court, they would have won that case.
Yeah, well, that's if my grandmother had, she'd be my grandfather.
By the way, Harvard probably would win its case too, but the cost of going through the case.
Yeah, but okay, these are hypotheticals.
Well,
yes,
but then sometimes people say that, and then they call it extortion, right?
Why don't we just say, look, this politics is not going away. If we have transparency on that, on all of what's going on, then people can make their decision. There was an election. There was an election that occurred. There were certain things that were going on in the colleges and universities. Certain things going on at the border, certain things going on in a lot of different places. That was behind what happened in the election. And as long as this is transparent, I think that's what our country can serve up versus the rest of the world.
Is the president right that rates should be lower, and is the Fed not cutting because of the pressure from the president?
You talk about politics and the Federal Reserve. I mean, I think when the dual mandate occurred, you basically put the Federal Reserve a lot closer to politics. Because you think if they were
you got to err on one side or the other.
Well, I mean, you think about it, and you just had Mayor Adams on, right? Like, look at the discussion going on in this city as to how to best go about full employment and grow the economy. Mamdani thinks we got to freeze rents in this city to go and have full employment, right? Well, we free market conservatives, we would say something else, that you absolutely shouldn't do that because that's going to end up hurting the people you want. So naturally, if you're going to have a Fed in this discussion, it's going to be
what do you
political.
think?
Look, I think if you look at where the labor market is right now,
solid.
It's full employment, right? So, okay, if you look at where inflation is right now, it's getting down to where, they say we should be at. Now, people think because of the tariffs or something else, and Trump has proven a lot of these naysayers wrong, you have to say, on tariffs. And are they going to be anti-growth? Is this tax of a tariff going to cause an economic slowdown, and you ought to get ahead of it? That would be the only reason why you should go ahead and lower rates right now. But otherwise, look at the equity markets. Do we need to lower rates? So,
you think that was a good deal with the EU?
Well, look, I think there's a lot of sort of reporting that's going on now as to what the deal really was. And all I know is if you look at the car situation and our domestics here, there needs to be some work done with Canada and Mexico, because if EU and Japan now can get into this country with 15% tariff, but yet a lot of the manufacturing that's not USMCA compliant on parts, they're going to be at 25%. That's not good for our domestic.
So you think other people are going to come to the table now? Does this?
You got to hand the administration credit. I mean, he's put out this deadline, and President Trump has said this.
We'd rather not, if at all possible, around here. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand where I sit.
Exactly.
But you do. I mean, you really have to give him credit for getting out there, and whether you agree with tariffs or not, has said we're going to try and do something to rebalance the trade situation.
Right.
And whether, look, I don't think that tariffs are pro-growth. I mean, and I think the benefits of these tariffs to reindustrialize our country is going to take a while.
So you don't think it's pro-growth because you think it's a tax? That
I think ultimately, yeah. I mean, it's going to be an increased cost on consumers, or you're going to see margin compression. And that's the other place.
Someone did make a point. It's true. If you tax something, you get less of it. But then Jan Niffen wrote in,
right.
But if it's imports that you want to get less of, then it might long-term be something positive. Yeah.
I don't disagree with that, but short-term, where's the alternative? It is in the more expensive domestic. I mean, that's...
And my other question is, do you believe that there will be now a sort of tsunami, a wave of exports by American manufacturers? Meaning, do you all of a sudden think that GM and Ford are going to start killing it in Germany?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think that, again, is not immediate. What's immediate with the tariffs are the receipts, right? I mean, there's going to be hundreds of billions of dollars that come into our country. He is correct about that. Right. Now, it will take time will tell whether we're really going to be able to see our companies penetrate these foreign markets and whether the non-tariff trade barriers are really gone.